Okay, so I wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up video, I guess. And this may just get tacked on to the end of the regular video, but there were some like questions that I didn't think about until like the last second here. Um, that Schmo, one of the testers of the game, had. So I'm just gonna like answer these questions since they seem kind of interesting to me, I guess. If I forgot some questions that somebody else asked in the like past 6 months, I apologize. Okay, so question one. Overall, how did the 7-year development experience compare to what you thought it would be when you started? Well, when I started, I certainly didn't think that the game was going to take 7 years. Like the plan was that it would be a short game that would take like 6 to 8 months, and I was working on it with Martin Cohen, an artist at the time. And then it totally went in a different direction and sort of got scoped down, but also scoped up in other ways. Um, and yeah, it just ended up taking a long time for various reasons. I guess I would say that like the experience was different in that I did not think that it was ever going to be a game that I would be able to work on full time. So that was like the main surprise. The that I kept working on it until I was finished with it was not a surprise. So in some sense you could say it was a surprise that it took as long as it did, but it probably would have taken way longer if I had not gotten the opportunity to work on it full time. Let's see. I guess these are some like similar follow-up questions to that. What aspects were harder than expected? What aspects were easier than expected? What were the high periods and low periods? What was harder than expected? What was easier than expected? Man, I don't think anything was harder or easier than I expected. I would say that like the biggest surprise, let me at least put it that way, because it's something kind of like close to that, defying my expectations, was that I would get to a certain point where I thought, man, the puzzles are like good in this game. And then I would sort of have this like breakthrough, which was partly due to Elliot Grant testing the game and giving me like a crash course on how to do like pen and paper type puzzle design or how it tends to be done. So it was really surprising to me that I would suddenly have this realization that like the puzzles were way worse than I thought they were, I guess, or certainly way worse than they could be. So there was like a lot of like redesigning of the game to make things better. Now I actually kept some of the puzzles from those earlier days. And some of those I would have never found using like a more traditional method that's not just like throwing stuff at a board and seeing what sticks, but that was like a big surprise. High periods and low periods. Well, certainly the high period was when I got the opportunity from Indie Fund, and I could work on the game full time. Like that was really exciting, and there was a lot of progress that I made really quickly when I started working on the game full time. Low period, I think the lowest period was probably working on the ending, in that it was just kind of not going well. And it took like 6 months to get that done, mostly because I spent like 4 months on totally the wrong idea, which became like a technical quagmire. And then I had to like I had to like design my way out of the technical problem, and then the ending worked. I'm trying to think of like other low periods. Like going into like release, people say that you'll be depressed, but I actually was not depressed. Gregory was like very depressed, especially after the game was shipped. So I think he like absorbed all of my depression. But I had also like already started working at Lunark at that time, and I think maybe it would have been more depressing if I was immediately thrown into the quagmire of like, oh my gosh, what do I do next? Um, Instead of like already having something that I do throughout the week. Um, yeah. Can I walk through? Oh, I guess this is sort of that same question. I walk through emotions on the days just before release, day of release, and the days just after release. Yeah, like, I wouldn't say there was much just before release. The day of release was kind of stressful in a way, but I think the most stressful thing heading up to release was when I hit the button on the trailer that announced the date. That was like the most stressful thing, because then that was just like committing to the game is coming out this day, and it doesn't matter whether or not we're totally done with everything that's on the list of things that we want to do or not. And it turned out that we were not, and some of those things didn't get done until like 3 months after release. But it was still good to set that date, even though it was like very stressful. Release, I think there was like a concern going into release that it wouldn't sell well. And then once it was clear that it had sold better than I expected, I didn't really worry about that. The game also was like relatively bug free, I would say. There was like not a lot of major issues that people ran into. There were some bugs. There's actually still some bugs in the game that like speedrunners found, but there was no like game breaking stuff day one. Even though like I took that weekend so that I would be available to answer people's support queries or fix bugs if they came up. There just really wasn't that much, so I actually spent a lot of time just like watching people stream the game, and so it was mostly enjoyable and relaxing, I would say. Do you now feel proud to have finished, or relieved to be done, or sad the journey's over? I'm definitely proud that I put the game out there. I wouldn't even say that the game's finished, because I see problems with the game. There's things that could have been done better. I do not see myself in like the position that I guess John was with The Witness, that it's like, I don't even know how to make it better. I definitely can see ways to have made it better. I just reached my limit, which is different. And to some extent is like why it's been hard to get started on the Switch port, because it's sort of like continuing to work on the thing. Now it's a more lightweight working on the thing than having to solve all these hard problems with the design and stuff, but so I wouldn't say that I regret not spending the extra time to polish up things even more. I think that it may have been something that was like 2% difference on a Steam review scale, right? But it would have taken like another year to fix all the problems that I see with the game. I see there as being like a lot of structural problems with the world design, where it wasn't quite clear until everything came together what like the cumulative effect of a lot of small decisions would have on the overall play experience. And I tried to band-aid some things, but then there's some things I didn't notice until like after release, and I don't really want to like go removing puzzles from the game after it's already out there, so I'm sort of limited on what I can do there. I guess that sort of answers the next question, which was, if you go back in time and do it all over again, what would you do differently? I mean, I really wouldn't do anything differently, to be honest. I can look at things and say, like, this was a mistake, or like I spent too much time on this, or I didn't spend enough time on this, or this didn't get totally polished, or, or whatever, but I still don't feel like I would do anything differently. I mean, I've just always been the type of person who I don't live with regrets. I don't sit around thinking about like, oh, I should have done this differently. I just sort of like take things as they come, even though I make lots of mistakes and I do a lot of things poorly. You know, like I've literally been thinking about today about how the trim around one of my windows is like rotting out and has been for like 2 years and I haven't done anything about it. So I definitely don't have my shit together in a lot of ways. You know, so maybe it's the things I would do differently is try to like stay on top of things besides the game, but I really don't think I could have because I was living so frugally when I was working on the game that I really just didn't have money for anything. Like my car was falling apart. And then finally, like after the game came out, you know, I still waited like 3 months, but I got a new car, which is where I guess most of the money from the game is going to end up ultimately. But anyway, yeah, so I don't really think that there's anything that I would do necessarily differently, but it's not to say that the game's perfect. It isn't. Anyway, I think that's like all the questions here, so I'm just gonna leave that at that because maybe that's interesting to some people. I'm sure it's at least interesting to Schmo who asked those questions. But I don't think I'll actually put this in with the devlog because it's a bit much. It's probably gonna like double the length of the video, but it'll be there if people want it. So thanks for watching. I will